Thank you, Brian. Thanks to Hugo House. Thanks to all of you for coming out and sticking around. And thanks to my cohort. Those were great readings, everyone. I'm so lucky to be a part of such a wonderful group. It's been a really, really great time, and I'm very lucky to have the support of such a great group. I also want to thank Potlatch Fund for providing me with the Native Arts Grant, which has also helped me to do the work on this really big project that I'm working on. And also want to say thanks to my parents for helping with this, because what I'm about to read to you tonight I could not have done without a lot of conversations with my parents. I'm going to read you the prologue of Starvation Mode, which I've been working on over the last couple of weeks. This began as a book about healing through traditional native foods after suffering from more health conditions than a woman of 28 probably should. And it's turned into this massive research project about family and heredity and history, and that's definitely influenced by my place I've kind of developed in academia through the Department of American Indian Studies at UW. And so I'm just learning so much about nutrition and plant science, genetics, history, and my family. And so on this stage, I've read a lot of really personal things, really personal memoir from my first book. And I think that now it's time to tell a larger story about larger than the one that I've just personally lived, about where I've come from and about the people I've come from. And that's a really terrifying thing to do. It's a really large responsibility, and I just want to do it the right way. I really appreciate this program and this community, and have been taking classes here, and it's really, really important to me to have a bunch of people believing that I'm actually working on a book instead of just an amoeba of research that I do late at night, which is what I would be doing if it weren't for Made at Hugo House. So I hope this prologue helps you to see a small piece of what I have in mind for this book. So I'm just going to go into it now. Maybe I'll do this first. The new thing in diet advice is that we're only supposed to eat the things our great-grandmothers would have recognized as food. I imagine that this endeavor is meant to require a hefty dose of imagination, but I'm a fairly literal person. So I've determined that this rule allows me to eat a few things, including pierogies, kielbasi, beans, huckleberries, pies made with sticks upon sticks of butter, and nursing home meatloaf. When journalist Michael Pollan popularized this notion, I know he wasn't really asking us to take inventories of kitchens we could never visit. He wanted us to consider our great-grandmother's reactions to handy snacks and Go-Gurt. He wanted us to think about the chemical additives that made their way into our foods over the last few generations. Pollan writes, quote, "Note, if your great-grandmother was a terrible cook or eater, you can substitute someone else's grandmother." A Sicilian or French one works particularly well. No, but that just doesn't work. I won't substitute anyone else for Mam Mam, who lived into her 90s. I knew her mostly from my dad's stories. He said she was the sweetest lady who ever lived, and everything she cooked had at least a stick of butter in it. When I knew Mam Mam, she was half watching Matlock while half eating nursing home meatloaf. Until I was old enough that I should have known better, I thought Mam Mam was a real name. Her real name was Margaret Burke, birth name Margaret Kelly. Mam Mam's forebears came over to Pennsylvania from Ireland to escape the potato famine of the mid-1800s. I can't say whether life across the ocean was better or worse, but certainly it was a new world, and the men would quickly burrow deep into this alien earth. A generation later, a new wave of immigrants would arrive from Eastern Europe, and those men would take to the mines, letting the Irish rise up above to the above-ground jobs. Anna Dębicka, my dad's other grandmother, arrived in Pennsylvania at the turn of the 20th century. She and Michael Washuta, who she would marry, emigrated separately from Galicia, a place that doesn't exist anymore, but was something like the Ukraine and something like Poland. Galicia had undergone decades of unrest and experiments with civil liberties, and in the 1880s, droves of peasants began quitting the place. Michael may have been a butcher in the old country. In the coal mines, he came down with coal workers' pneumoconiosis, commonly known as black lung, necrosis of lung tissue resulting from long-term buildup of inhaled anthracite coal dust that the body can't remove. Growing up, I heard stories about the mines, about how both Mamam's husband, known to us as Pappy, and her brother Leo were both missing fingers. I would get all mixed up about who lost a thumb, and who lost a non-thumb finger, and how many fingers. And as a tiny child, I imagined Pappy losing half his hand in some kind of sooty anthracite explosion. But it wasn't like that. Pappy and Leo worked up above the mines, where it was supposed to be less dangerous. Pappy lost his thumb in some machinery up there. Leo was missing a finger that got caught between a couple of coal cars. Pappy couldn't write after that, but he kept working in the lamp house until he retired at age 70. I have quite a few photos of Mamam and Pappy, but hardly any of Anna and Michael. In a photo of Anna from 1949, she stands kielbasi sturdy in a dark dress in front of a row house front porch, pressing her lips together like iron and board, while my grandpa smiles in his long-tailed wedding tux. Anna had a middle like a mushroom cap. Mamam and Pappy appear in some of the bridal party photos, but Anna only appears in this photo, her face half shadowed by her hat's fake foliage. Of all my great-grandmothers, Anna was the one whose traditional foods ended up on my plate. Some of my favorite coal region foods are basically things tucked inside of other things. Most people have had a pierogi. Those are just pockets of dough, stuffed with surprises. Halupkis are meat laboriously rolled into pockets of steamed cabbage. A favorite holiday dessert is a poppy seed paste rolled into a dough log and baked. Kielbasi is basically one part of a pig stuffed into another part of a pig. I consider the pierogi to be the greatest culinary achievement of Eastern Europe. And I'm not talking about the ones in the freezer aisle that have too much in common with their cardboard packaging, boasting that the contents are low fat. Far cries from the dumplings, handed down straight from heaven, hand-scorched pockets of hand-pressed, unleavened dough swimming in butter, soaking through layers and layers of paper plates. The first pierogi might have been bestowed upon us from above by Our Lady of Czestochowa herself. I haven't had pierogis in years, though, and I doubt I'll ever eat them again. They're one of the few foods I missed from my life before my celiac disease diagnosis, which keeps me from eating wheat and some other grains. I've also been found to be intolerant to lactose, the sugar in cow's milk, and casein, the major protein in cow's milk. So much for eating what my great-grandmother ate. Yes, I know, there are gluten-free pierogies, but I don't think Anna would recognize half the shit on those labels. Luckily, I have other great-grandmothers whose diets I can plunder for ideas. My Grandpa Bud's mother is still an unknown to me. I don't even actually know her name and have a lot to learn about her. I never met my mom's other grandmother either, but I have photos and stories of Abby Weiser Reynolds, daughter of Mary Lawayadi, or Indian Mary, or sometimes Kalaya, the daughter of Chief Tunnoth, headman of the Watlala, otherwise known as the Cascade Indians. In 1855, Tunnoth gave his signature to the Kalapuya Treaty, along with many other chiefs and headmen in the Oregon Territory. Disease had hit these people hard decades earlier, and there were almost none of them left to make the trip to the Grand Ronde Reservation that would now be their home. White settlers quickly violated the treaty. The next year, following an attack on a non-native settlement at the Cascades of the Columbia, the site of a sacred salmon fishery where native people gathered much of their food for 15,000 years, Tumeth was hanged in 1856. He was around 25 years old. In one photo of Abby, 2 generations later, she is standing among huckleberry bushes, paused while picking. I feel worlds away from Abby and her children, who sometimes lived off beans and jar after jar of huckleberries, while rainwater gathered in pots under the perforated roof. My great-grandfather, her first husband, Morris Reynolds, was the handsome, hard-partying Dane Abby sometimes locked out of the house, threatening him with a shotgun. I imagine showing up at that house with my arms full of Gushers, pizza bagel bites, Lucky Charms, double-stuffed Oreo cakesters, Cool Ranch Doritos, and Skittles. Abby and the kids might be portioning out huckleberries gathered in summer and canned for inevitable times of need, and for protein, eating beans, a food that had no place in a traditional Northwest Coast diet. I am certain that while my Safeway offerings might not be familiar, a starving mother would know exactly what to do with all of it. Flour and sugar have offered a quick fix that has afflicted us since contact. I'm not saying I'd actually offer those foods to my relatives. I don't even know whether Lucky Charms are actually food. If I could, I would offer Abby so many cans of salmon and ask her if I could sit with her and listen. I cannot substitute someone else's great-grandmother for my own. Abby and I never met, but we are connected by a genetic rope. Some researchers support a thrifty genotype hypothesis, which suggests that humans may possess a gene that enables us to store fat during food shortages to survive famines. But once food is plentiful, these individuals are predisposed to obesity and metabolic syndrome, being prepared for famines that no longer come. Answers might also come from the rapidly advancing field of epigenetics, the study of changes in gene expression that do not involve changes in the DNA sequence. Researchers have found that genes can be turned on and off by environmental triggers, including food, stress, and toxins. Fetal development is the scary time, when the genes can get tagged with gloom. When Abby was expecting the birth of my Grandma Kate, she took a pair of scissors to bed with her every night, not wanting to be messed with, saying she would deliver that child herself. My genes are a messy file cabinet. My medical records can fill binders. I am 28 years old, and I've had my gallbladder yanked out and my head straightened by too many bipolar medications to count. Bipolar disorder, celiac disease, and gallbladder disease are known to have genetic components. I spent my teen years on antibiotics to treat acne, wiping out the essential gut flora I had inherited from my mother at birth, and would miss so much more than I knew. There are other things. I worry that when I rack up enough diagnoses, the insurance company will take me out back and shoot me. And then there's the bug on the back of my tongue that begs for alcohol. My medications make me unable to stomach any alcohol. And eventually, I inevitably decide that I'd miss the taste of whiskey and smash the iron stomach I've worked so hard for so long to cast. Then I fix it again. Growing up, I never saw anyone drink except on TV. I thought beer was silly because the silly men with accordions sang about it in the polka songs my grandpa listened to. In heaven there is no beer, that's why we drink it here. When we're gone from here, When Tumeth signed the treaty, he agreed to an article that stated, "In order to prevent the evils of intemperance among said Indians, it is hereby provided that any one of them who shall drink liquor or procure it for any other Indians to drink may have his or her proportion of the annuities withheld from him or her for such time as the President may determine." Indians are not wicked. Indians are not children, and prohibition is a bad idea. But I wonder whether, for me, this strange intoxicant is as foreign a food to my system as the wheat and milk and other foods that my body regards as sinister strangers. Through trial, error, attention, and revision, I've come to realize that the foods I digest best are the ones that have always been here, and workable substitutes. I am in Seattle now, not far from where some of my family has lived for 15,000 years. My body is forcing me to figure out my Indian identity by bringing traditional foods into my life. I am a work in progress. I eat the ground venison packaged in styrofoam and saran wrap from the co-op. I eat turnips and rutabagas, trying to approximate the camas and wapato I can't gather. I buy cans and cans of salmon from Costco. I try to dive back 300 years within my own body, but I suspect it's already too late to repair my mangled guts and carve out a hunter-gatherer shape from this persistent apple. At night, before my meds knock me unconscious, my brain hums with thoughts of what more I can do the next day, what ancestrally appropriate fish I might try from the Asian market. My blood is in need. I will take my plant picture books to the woods and gather all day, close my eyes and grind the spines of fish between my teeth. I hope I can salvage this busted body, mend it, protect it, put it to use. Thank you.